This episode of the Popture podcast was brought to you by our Patreon. If you want to tell us which films we should watch, listen to up to 2 extra exclusive podcasts a month, or give us something to discuss in our new post-credit scenes at the end of each episode, then please consider joining the cult and donating at www.patreon.com/cultpopture. All right, Richard?
I got the hiccups.
That's a great way to start a podcast.
Yeah.
Just in time.
I
I had the hiccups on the podcast once, and you said you thought I was faking and didn't believe me, and I was.
you were
not
faking it, and I still don't believe you.
Why would I fake that? It sounded horrible.
Because you were
It
drunk
sounds
and you thought
horrible.
it'd be funny.
I didn't think it was funny. It was really upsetting because I hate having the hiccups, and they were real. They were real hiccups.
Yeah, but you kept on interrupting my story to be like, "Oh, look, I'm hiccuping," and I was, and it's. I still
Look,
think
that
you're
might have
faking.
been a drunk. Like I might have been drunk enough to find it funny that I had the hiccups, but the hiccups themselves were real.
Welcome along to the Hiccup Podcast.
Hiccult Popture. Hiccult Popture.
I genuinely have the hiccups real bad, so
Do you have a glass of water?
I have a bottle of water.
No. Maybe down there. Hey, Jeremy, how are you?
Oh, I'm real good, AJ. I'm real good.
That's good. I'm glad to hear it.
Do you have the hiccups?
I do not. No, but look, my baby Ivy, she gets hiccups all the time, and it's the worst. Because we'll be like, oh, are you ready to go to bed? Yeah, oh, great. You can go to bed. And then you're like just about to put her in bed, and she's like, and you're like, oh,
Wow.
Wow.
Does a baby with hiccups need to be tended to?
Well, it's just she won't go to sleep if she's got hiccups. Can you go
Neither
to sleep
will
while
I.
you still got hiccups?
I don't know. I've never tried. I've never had the hiccups while I've been trying to go to sleep.
Yeah,
I usually cry myself to sleep, not laugh myself to sleep.
Way.
All right, so today we're doing a little podcast, a Cult Popture podcast for you. This week, it's
That's all, folks. We just turn on.
we just scat for an hour. This week we're doing a podcast on what roles actors could have played had they not died a tragic death.
not necessarily.
All deaths are tragic.
Yeah. Oh, well, okay.
Yeah. A joyous death.
Well, given some of the actors, shall we say, recreational activities, some of them were not untimely deaths. Let's just say that.
Oh,
Ooh,
yeah.
okay.
I think So I do want to stress before we get into it. We intend this to be a tasteful podcast. We're not going to be making fun of dead actors any more than what I guess the precedent Jeremy just set then. That's about.
It's all
That's
uphill from here.
And we're not doing this because of a particular celebrity death, because there have been a few in the news this week, which is very sad. So I'm basically saying, I hope and pray
Don't be mad at us, bro.
that this episode will not be seen as in poor taste. I hope it can be removed from the reality of death and just be about fan casting, which is something we've sort
That's
of
the
done
thing.
before.
Yeah, it is fan casting. It's so the kind of parameters of it is we're looking at actors who passed away. Most of them are untimely deaths, and despite what Jeremy might have you believe, and it's roles that came up after they passed away. That we think they could have been perfect for. And some of my ones, it's like the actor we got in the role is perfect. You wouldn't want to change a thing. But, we're pitching actors that could have also done that role and might have brought something different to it. It'd be interesting to see what that could have been like.
And we had some suggestions from listeners as well, which we'll be going through. But it's funny because we've done similar concepts to this on the podcast before. The most similar would probably be when we recast our least favorite actors in their most iconic role. I feel like that's the closest sister to this episode. And that was relatively simple because you just thought of an actor you didn't like, then thought of someone who would fit that role. This episode has been a nightmare to try and prepare for because it's a cool concept. It's a very cult Popturian concept of for an episode, I think.
Popturian candidate.
It turns out that it's actually a real niche idea as well, because it's like you have to find an actor who's died and then a role they'd be good for in a movie specifically released after their death. And so like a couple of the suggestions we got and a couple of my friends who were helping me come up with ideas were suggesting like, you know, an actor who died in 2014 playing a role from like the 90s. And it's like, well, they could have played the role. So that doesn't count. And I also do want to say, and I don't know what you guys have planned necessarily, but also usually we try and, you know, be a bit diverse with our selection of people that we talk about. You know, try to not just do men who have died. But I'll tell you what, there's Brittany Murphy, Carrie Fisher, and that's those.
Aaliyah?
Yeah, exactly. And I haven't cast a lot of women in these in this exercise, and while that may seem like I'm you know got a blind spot, and maybe it is, it's, you know, there's a bright side to it that from the looks of it, from my sample size, it seems that it's that not a lot of female actors or actresses, as some call them,
die?
Do pass
do they
away.
all just stay alive forever?
Well, I don't know. You tell me.
Great news. Women don't die.
Or I guess the other thing is that you get ones like Marilyn Monroe or Natalie Wood, who I guess we're not as familiar with, unfortunately.
And all these old Hollywood actresses who died of old age. Like there's no like female Paul Walker or Robin Williams, you know, like, or at least
the
comparative.
Problem, the thing is, so you mentioned this earlier in the week, AJ, and you were like, oh, you know, there just aren't as many women who died. But the thing is that when Robin Williams died, he was what, 63? Yeah, he was 63, and he was still famous. Female actresses, unless they're like Meryl Streep or, you know, one of the three other older actresses you can name, when they are not young, they're not famous anymore, and that's the reason why there are fewer women who die, like, while they're still in the public consciousness.
We're now enacting in my favourite practice on Cold Popture, which is to explain how what could be perceived as our own sexism is actually a deeper sexism on the movie industry itself.
It's not our problem, guys. Don't blame us for how bad other people are.
I think that is a really good point. And it's like, it's with like the most to me, like, Brittany Murphy is the poster child for tragic actress death, right?
She's the Paul Walker.
Yeah, she's the Paul Walker. But like in the same way that when I went to see if I could think of any roles that Paul Walker could have played past after the time he died, and I was like, not really. Like
Fate of the Furious.
I don't know if Brittany Murphy like screamed for, you know, if Brittany Murphy had like a particular style of acting that was as I don't know, interesting to see taking on other roles as someone like Robin Williams would have.
Okay, well, just to actually get the podcast underway, should we start off some of these? Because I've actually got one for Brittany Murphy.
Oh my god. Okay.
So let's get our lone female pitch out of the way. No, I don't know what you guys have got, but yeah, Brittany Murphy. I think that had Brittany Murphy still been around at the time when the DC universe was starting up, that she would have been a perfect Harley Quinn.
Do you know what? That was what I thought of too, and I was like, is it just because she's a blonde woman? Is that why I'm thinking she'd be good in that role? But she does have the voice for it. She if you've seen her in Clueless or her character Luann in King of the Hill, I've been watching a lot of King of the Hill lately. She has that kind of she's able to pull off that kind of shrill New Yorker accent that Harley Quinn is famous for.
Yeah,
exactly.
and I also think that if you look at, she's got that like really wide-eyed kind of. She's got like an element behind her eyes where you just don't know what she's going to do next. Like in 8 Mile as the girlfriend, you kind of really believe in her because you kind of go, you've got the capacity to do almost anything at any moment, and she's an exciting screen presence to watch because of that.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I think she would definitely be in the conversation for Harley Quinn.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a different Harley, I imagine, or like than what we've got with Margot Robbie. And Margot Robbie is perfect casting for Harley Quinn. I'm not in love with her version of the character.
But it's good. It's a good idea to cast her.
Yeah. But yeah, that Brittany Murphy has that kind of like wild-eyed look that it feels like Margot Robbie is putting on, whereas it comes naturally to Brittany Murphy.
Nice. Good idea.
So
cool.
that's
wow,
my
we got
first
it. We got one. We got one in the can. Can I ask you guys a question about your process for coming up with ideas for this episode?
No. All right. Next one.
I want to know if you guys did the same thing as I did, because ideally, when we come up with a concept like this, the the perfect idea comes to mind. Usually they're born out of a perfect idea. For example, when we recast our least favorite actors, I knew before we even did that episode that I was going to recast Jared Leto in Suicide Squad as Macaulay Culkin. Like that was my smoking gun, my ace in the hole. Whereas this one, I didn't have one of those. And so what I did is I wrote down a few iconic dead actors, like ones that were big in my life, and then I went back to my Letterboxd rankings since the earliest celebrity death I had, and just went through all the different movies since their death on Letterboxd and tried to slot them in somewhere. Is that what you guys did?
What I did was I forgot about it until today, and and then just thought of a bunch of dead actors and figured I'll riff with the boys on the podcast.
So with you slotting in Brittany Murphy as Harley Quinn, it just reminded me of like, I think perhaps a good practice for when we get to one of the iconic ones is to go, which Marvel villain would they have played?
Well, that's the thing, yeah. A lot of them, and because there's some that it's like, the role existed while they were alive, but we're going to get it again, and they didn't have a chance to play it. But sort of, because, you said about how often these podcasts will come from like, oh, a great idea, let's think of a bunch of other ones. The sort of, the idea that sparked this one was when I was sort of thinking about how obviously two of the sort of big celebrity deaths that were super shocking in the 2010s were Philip Seymour Hoffman and Robin Williams. And I said that it feels like Philip Seymour Hoffman, we were robbed of like at least another Oscar-winning performance, and dozens of like incredible performances in incredible films. Whereas Robin Williams, like as much as I love him, I feel like at best we would have gotten one more good dramatic role out of him, and like. His last couple of movies were Merry Friggin' Christmas, which if you've seen like the DVD cover, it's him and Joel McHale, and it looks awful. And a film called The Angriest Man in Brooklyn, where Mila Kunis is a doctor who tells him that he's gonna die because he was being rude to her.
He was also starring in a very tedious sitcom with Sarah Michelle Gellar at the time of his death. It is a sad thing to look at, that it seems like Robin Williams was on a downward trajectory, which I mean, I say that also, and I'd like to acknowledge that like he'd had amazing roles already, so it's not like he missed out necessarily. Shall I read out a suggestion from one of our listeners that is for Robin Williams?
Yes.
Sure. Go for it.
Yep. So this one comes from My Vincent Academia on Instagram, I believe. He says, Robin Williams as the Riddler. It is a role I wanted Williams to play immediately after watching 1 Hour Photo. Have you guys seen 1 Hour Photo?
I've seen like half of it, I think, on TV.
Very, very disturbing Robin Williams' role. He goes on to say, "I believe he would have been the right choice for the Riddler, following over from the over the top Jim Carrey version, because general audiences would expect a performance just as big and loud as Batman Forever Riddler. Williams could showcase the obsession side of the character and find real humanity in the role. Ideally, I would want this Riddler in the Dark Knight trilogy, since Nolan's work with Williams in Insomnia was also fantastic." So he breaks the rule there, because the Dark Knight trilogy was done and dusted by the time of Robin Williams' death.
Yeah.
But it does bring to light that, like, God, the Riddler is on the edge of having a definitive live action portrayal, isn't he? He's like the last one left of the redone Batman villains that we haven't really seen brought back yet. Like, it feels like he just missed out on being in the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah, I remember when after the Dark Knight came out, there was like all these fan posters for like Batman 3. And I saw like Neil Patrick Harris, David Tennant, who I think would both do great jobs as well. But yeah, I also think I wonder if Robin Williams would have maybe had like a TV show like Kidding, the Jim Carrey one. Where it's a chance to use kind of the audience, the general public's perception of him as like a funny man, and then really go into like the depths of depression and whatnot through that. I think that could be cool.
So we're doing Robin Williams now?
Yeah, if you've got some.
Because I had a couple of ideas for Robin Williams. My first idea that, like, because my way of getting into this was to basically go, okay, they died, and then go to what year they died, how old they were when they died, and then go, okay, in the next 3 years after that, what movies came out that I thought would probably be good for them. And I don't have Letterboxd, so I just had to, like the poor man that I am, I went to Wikipedia. Sorry, guys.
Wikipedia's our friend too.
Yeah, it's just not as cool as Letterboxd. But the thing that came to mind, like the only thing that came to mind when I was thinking about it, was the one I had for Robin Williams, and I don't know why, but I just thought how awesome it would be if he was in Ozark, the TV show with Jason Bateman, as either Jason Bateman's father or as like one of the gang bosses from like who Jason Bateman was having to deal with. And I was like, there's something about that for show. It's filmed, it's set in America. It's I don't know, I just feel like that tension and seeing what Jason Bateman has been able to do in that dramatic role as someone who's first known as a comedian. I don't know, I just think that Robin Williams and Jason Bateman would just have a really cool energy against each other.
Nice. I like that. Yeah. I can imagine. Yeah, I would love to have seen him in more of those like supporting roles where it's
like character roles.
Yeah, character roles. And he just had such that warmth that he just brought to any role. And I say warmth that even when he's playing a villain in like 1 Hour Photo or Insomnia, it's like a lived in. The characters feel really lived in.
Well, he's magnetic. Yeah. That's the thing. Like you just want to watch him regardless of, and so it's like that's why he's so good as an antagonist, because you view him like a protagonist. You know, you view him like someone that you're meant to be paying attention to.
Ironic Brad posts on Instagram also commented Robin Williams as the live action genie.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Right? Like if he were still alive, I doubt they would have recast Genie.
No, he would have been like Mufasa. Like they didn't recast James Earl Jones because you can't.
Interesting. Yeah. I think they still would have, but they might have. I actually think that if Robin Williams was still alive, we could have still gotten like a Will Smith or a Dwayne Johnson or even a Jack Black. But they would be allowed to be more different, because now it's like, you're our last tie to Robin Williams. You have to give us some of that. Whereas if it's like Robin Williams goes to the premiere and he's like, yeah, fuck it, let's do something different. That's when I think Will Smith, for example, would really be able to go full Will Smith, which we all kind of agreed was the biggest issue with it, that he wasn't like just being
Yeah,
Will
well,
Smith.
because the issue with live action Aladdin for Robin Williams when he would have been in his sort of mid to late 60s is that it was live action, and so how could he have turned in like the same kind of energetic performance as, I mean, even though it was CGI, like there was still large elements of it. If we're still imagining,
Yeah,
it was
you might be right.
Guy Ritchie, but as a contra to that, like I think it would have been really cool, given what AJ was saying about how his career was kind of on the downturn, that like the live action Aladdin could have been like the renaissance of Robin Williams, like bringing him back to kind of A-list again.
Sort of like how James Franco got Me Too'd through the press tour for The Disaster Artist, so they just had Tommy Wiseau do it all again. like you could get Robin Williams on the press tour even if he's not in the movie, or maybe only has a cameo in the film. That was a weird comparison. But you know who. Okay, here is who Robin Williams would have played were he still alive. He would be the cameo at the end of Jumanji: The Next Level. And Jumanji 3 or whatever it's called would be the merging of the original Jumanji movie with the new series. Because at the end of Jumanji: The Next Level, it's like a cameo of like one of the female characters from the first Jumanji who's not famous anymore.
It's a cameo of Winston from New Girl.
What? Is it?
Yeah, he shows up at the end and he's the one that brings everything into the real world.
No. It's who Danny DeVito is talking to in the cafe. She is like from the original Jumanji. But Robin Williams would, if he wasn't in Welcome to the Jungle, which it feels like they would have put him in that already, he would be at the end of the new one, and the third Jumanji movie would feature him reprising his role in full as Alan Parrish, much in the way that Sam Neill and Laura Dern and Jeff Goldblum are all returning to Jurassic World. What's it called? Dominion.
Yeah.
Dominion. Yeah.
On my last suggestion for Robin Williams was a little bit of a rule break, but when I was thinking about roles that I think that he would be amazing in, I'd actually like to see a version of Bad Santa with him as Bad Santa.
It would have to be Bad Santa too, because he was alive for the first.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. It's a rule break.
Right. He could be in Bad Santa 2 or 3 as like the anti. He could be Good Santa. And it's about Billy Bob Thornton. Seriously, that's my continue the franchise for Bad Santa. Is he meets like a good Santa, and the movie is him slowly breaking down the good Santa to be just as bad of a Santa.
Well, I would like to see Bad Santas, and it's like he moves to a new store or something like that, and there's already one there, and so there's like they compete with each other. Well, I think it's a great idea, like Robin Williams as like, because you would like go into this new store and you've got this beautiful, warm, like Santa played by Robin Williams, and you go, oh, and then he like goes, oh, fucking kids, you know, like and he would suit both of those roles so well, and he would be a lot more convincing as like the Santa, but just as bad as Billy Bob Thornton.
Yeah,
great idea. I really like that this is an idea we came up with from riffing with each other and not one prepared, because it's the perfect kind of riffed idea.
Yeah.
Like when you go to listen to this episode, roles that actors could have played if they hadn't died. Interesting. You come away with Robin Williams in a Bad Santa sequel. You know, that's not the kind of idea you plan. That's the kind of idea you accidentally come up with on pod. I love it.
I mean, I did plan that. I said he should. Oh, well, anyway.
Okay, you did actually plan it. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Classic AJ, trying to take credit for all my best ideas. Good times.
I didn't say I came up with the idea. All right.
So one idea that actually was sort of the genesis of this podcast, that and this is one of those roles that like it's played perfectly as is, but Philip Seymour Hoffman, as we found out on our last off-week episode, he's my favorite actor, that I think he would have done a great job as Terrence Fletcher in Whiplash. Now, like Whiplash, one of my favorite movies of all time, and we found out earlier in the year that it's the number one movie of the 2010s. They're called as voted by by us.
We found out.
But and so like I think because J.K. Simmons, incredible actor, and that role propelled him to like the next level of stardom. But he plays it's very much like a drill sergeant, and that works for the film. But I would just love to see the kind of gravitas and like flawed character that Philip Seymour Hoffman would bring to that. Because like famously in Almost Famous, there's a scene where he's talking on the phone to the main character, and it was written as him like telling him off, but then he played it as like, this is a man whose life appears amazing from the outside, giving a moment of vulnerability to some kid. And it's like to see that kind of depth and range to what is, borderline a one-note character, apart from, like he's fleshed out through sort of sprinkled them on scenes in Whiplash. But yeah, I would just love to see that kind of depth to Terence Fletcher, who I already fucking love as is.
I can imagine he would bring more of a sense of sort of a tortured, brooding artist who, like, you could see. I think you could empathize, like, whereas, J.K. Simmons really plays him as someone who's so impenetrable. Whereas I think that Philip Seymour Hoffman would definitely give you more of that sense of like, that he has this whole world behind him and all these kind of almost empathetic reasons for why he is the way that he is.
And I also think that like it would almost be more terrifying because like getting yelled at, being called fat, like just getting these drill sergeant kind of things yelled at you, but like coming from a man who has been through all of this himself and really wants to hurt you. And I think that Philip Seymour Hoffman, it would be almost more terrifying. And so that's one that that's sort of what sparked the idea of this in my head.
Nice. I have some other Philip Seymour Hoffman potential castings. Let me know what you think of this. The voice of the Boss Baby. Is there something about Alec Baldwin that means he's appropriate to play the Boss Baby?
Yes, his character in 30 Rock.
And his character in Glengarry Glen Ross.
I guess that must be it, because I never felt like he was that much of a get. They're like, that's right, we got Alec Baldwin to voice the baby. But it's like Alec Baldwin's like kind of a TV actor anyway. Like, well, he's both. But like,
I think he's not. It's like he's known for having a deep, raspy voice, and it's not so much like we got Alec Baldwin. It's like Alec Baldwin as the voice of a baby. Watch to find out.
Which I feel like you could apply the same sell to Philip Seymour Hoffman as the Boss Baby, right?
But I think that Philip Seymour Hoffman brings more layers and nuance, and so in terms of
that's so funny to put on the Boss Baby.
Exactly. But I think the idea of anyway, I'm not here to defend Alec Baldwin as the choice for Boss Baby, but apparently I am. This is where we are. Love this riff, guys.
Like Oscar-winning J.K. Simmons in Whiplash is like, yeah, cool, let's change it. But like Alec Baldwin as the Boss Baby, he's like, no one can replace him.
Well, it's the difference between like a full physical performance and voice acting, right? So like Alec Baldwin as the voice actor for Boss Baby, his voice is so much about that. Like he's got that sort of that confidence, but also like there's a cynicism that runs through his voice that just embodies that kind of, I don't know, that kind of cocky, confident asshole.
Have you guys seen Mary and Max?
No.
The claymation for it's a voice role from Philip Seymour Hoffman where he's playing this like depressed, autistic, middle-aged man who becomes pen pals with a young Australian girl. And I'm imagining that as the Boss Baby. So it's very like every single word is spelled out like this, and there's also just a sadness to it.
What about Philip Seymour Hoffman as the Boss Baby, but he's doing his Capote voice?
And he just sounds like a baby?
Yeah. All right.
Do you want to do the Capote voice for anyone who hasn't heard it, AJ?
Is it like this? Is this a good...
I sound like Bjork.
Yeah, just want to touch all the little butterflies.
That's Capote.
I was doing Bjork.
Yeah.
One Philip Seymour Hoffman role as well. That like talking about which Marvel villain they could have played, but Philip Seymour Hoffman as Doc Ock.
Yep.
Yeah,
That'd be cool.
in the MCU, that'd be great.
Yeah. Okay. Another role I thought of for Philip Seymour Hoffman. I got 5 for Philip Seymour Hoffman. So
Lay it on us, pal.
Kevin Spacey's character from Baby Driver. I'm sticking with casting him in films with baby in the title. Okay. Now, let's get the obvious out of the way. I know they didn't know it at the time of Baby Driver, but this allows us to remove the kind of stigma, because Baby Driver was like Kevin Spacey's last hurrah before he was thrown into the depths, right? So much so, because they came out like 2017 is Baby Driver, and 2017 is also when all the shit came out about Kevin Spacey. And to me, they came out at the same time, and so it's very strange to remember Baby Driver and be like, "What, Kevin Spacey? I feel like I haven't seen him in a movie in 100 years, and yet he's in this film that still feels pretty recent." So obviously, you have that soothsayer-esque problem solved for the movie, and we can probably all agree, I'm assuming, that Philip Seymour Hoffman is as good of, if not better, an actor than Kevin Spacey. Also, Kevin Spacey's not that great in Baby Driver. Like, I'll say it, I was afraid to say it at the time, but there's a scene where he helps Baby and the girl get away, and when he does it, he's like, "I was in love once." Da 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 da, and it's this horrible performance. It's a cheesy line that you might want to blame it on the writing, but then in my head I imagine Philip Seymour Hoffman saying that line, and I was like, it's a great line.
Yeah.
Him being like, "I was in love once," in his Philip Seymour Hoffman voice,
and doing like
feels
the
more real.
"Don't quote Monsters Inc. to me. I've seen the movie." Like,
yeah, exactly. You're right. Like, I just feel like Philip Seymour Hoffman. I mean, there's, we're getting into the territory now where it's like, it feels like a bunch of different actors could have played that role.
Yeah,
AJ.
but
yes,
man,
that's correct.
This is actually just making me real sad now. Like imagining all these roles as Philip Seymour Hoffman. And
well, shall I move to my next one, which is a bit controversial because this is replacing an actor who many would say is irreplaceable in this role, or maybe they wouldn't. I don't actually know how. He was nominated for it. Dick Cheney in Vice.
Oh my gosh, that was my one for Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah? Oh, nice.
Well, it's what.
I mean, he looks like him. That's the thing.
Yeah. And because I get that Christian Bale like put on all the weight and da 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 da, and it's like, yeah, but
Philip Seymour Hoffman was fat already.
I feel like Christian Bale getting into character was more impressive because he was doing it, and his actual performance as Dick Cheney was fine.
And it did take you out of the movie that you knew that Christian Bale doesn't look really at all like Dick Cheney. Whereas I think, like you're saying, like I think people were more impressed that Christian Bale got that close to someone he's not at all like. Whereas I think that the movie would be better served by Philip Seymour Hoffman.
I agree. So yeah, I'm glad. Do you have any thoughts on that, Richard?
I love it. Yeah, that's great.
All right, now it's time for if Philip Seymour Hoffman was still alive, which Marvel character would he have played?
Oh, are we finished with other roles?
No, I'm still on Philip Seymour Hoffman.
No,
which Marvel
but Jeremy,
character?
if you've got one before Marvel, then do you want to?
Yeah, because I also thought, given that he was such a Paul Thomas Anderson muse, I would be so interested to see Phantom Thread with him instead of Daniel Day-Lewis.
Oh, yes,
what a
please.
Call. What a call.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. I did think of that, but my acknowledgement of how revered Daniel Day-Lewis is kept me from being like, yeah, he should have been the guy in Phantom Thread. But there's a good point. Okay, which Marvel character should Philip Seymour Hoffman have played? Bear in mind, it has to be a post-2014 Marvel film. I think Yon-Rogg in Captain Marvel, Jude Law's character.
Oh, yeah,
Jude
yeah,
Law
nice.
is kind of like the nothing in that movie, right? He's the that bland Marvel flavor of character that is completely like a brunette white man, and he doesn't offer anything. He doesn't change. He's the least interesting character in a movie that's already at its peak, like struggling to be entirely interesting. And I do like that movie somewhat, but that is, I think that is a problem with it, is that it fails to stand out. And Philip Seymour Hoffman would just be that special sauce as Yon-Rog.
Well, and also you could believe that he was good, whereas like from the very beginning of the movie, you're like, yeah, Jude Law's bad. You know he's bad.
Yeah, I agree. So that's my Marvel cast for Philip Seymour Hoffman. The other one would be
Black Panther.
We can we can just throw any other actor at this because it's such a nothing role and is begging to be filled out somewhat. Would be Yellow Jacket from Ant-Man. I don't know if Philip Seymour Hoffman should have played that character necessarily, but that he is literally a bald man. Yellow Jacket, the actor who plays him. He's literally a blank slate of a person, and I would have loved to have seen someone with more pizzazz play that role. And my final fan cast for Philip Seymour Hoffman, were he still alive, is a little bit of an outside the box one that Jeremy will not understand at all.
Great. Excited.
I think, Richard, he should have played, what's the character's name? Candy in El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie. The bad guy in El Camino.
Right, yeah, okay.
I was again, and this absolutely, I will admit this comes from just looking at what movies came out after his death. And I feel like there's something, and maybe there is a connection that I'm not fully realizing. There's something very Breaking Bad appropriate for Philip Seymour Hoffman. I'm not sure what that is. And I think El Camino maybe needed a big name attached to it to like be like, it's a movie. It's not, it's not an episode of the TV show. And I think Philip Seymour Hoffman, he can play a Nazi, give him like a mullet, and he can play a welder, which is what Candy is. And I don't know, I just figured if I'm going to put Philip Seymour Hoffman in a 2019 movie, well, it'd be Captain Marvel, I guess, but it would also be El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie.
Well,
Yes.
Richard, I've also got an exclusionary movie idea for Philip Seymour Hoffman that you and I can Jones around about without old Jones here.
Oh, come on, mate.
I would cast him in the non-Ray Romano role of Paddleton. And I think that would make Paddleton an A+, like an A-grade movie that AJ would have to have seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about that movie.
Nice. Yeah, I like that.
Because it was Mark, what's his face?
Mark Duplass.
Mark Duplass.
Yeah. And it's like, it's his movie, so it's like,
When I see Mark Duplass, I go, Philip Seymour Hoffman, yes, please.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. That's one of those ones that like the movie would be too good. Like,
Well, it would be an Oscar, like if he was in it playing that role, he would have been nominated for an Oscar, I reckon.
yeah.
Because the meat is there. It's just that no one really cared about it because A, it was a Netflix movie, and B, it didn't, it was like Ray Romano and someone no one's ever heard of.
Yeah.
We've got some responses to the question on Discord, which I might run through as we transition to our next one. So I sort of asked it on the Discord, and let this be a plug for the Discord. There is a link in the show notes. Come join our Discord and
I
chat
will not
with us.
let this be a plug for the Discord.
Every day you can chat to us about whatever you want. Some people, Tourette's /F4 Stan account said Abe Vigoda should have been Vulture, which opened up the floor to a very strange conversation about Abe Vigoda that I didn't really understand what was going on. So check that out on the Discord.
Because someone was like, Avogoda's still alive. And I was like, well, he's not. And then they were like, nah, he is. And I was like, I guess you're doing a joke, but he died.
Was this some kind of like Elvis situation?
I don't know, but he was like, yeah, I was trying to do a reverse of like that person's dead thing. And I was like, well, good try, man.
This is the kind of patronizing you can expect if you join our Discord. We'll talk about you on the podcast like you can't hear us.
Is it reverse Mandela just gaslighting? I think it is.
So you're telling me I've been gaslighted into thinking that the Pirates of the Caribbean 4 doesn't exist?
It doesn't.
What? But these are 5. I'll go through some more on the Discord. Mike Noyes says Bela Lugosi would have made an awesome Marvel villain, which is, I guess, true. I'm not too familiar with Bela Lugosi, but a lot of the chat did just descend into this person would make a good Marvel villain. I'll read out some of the other ones here. Mike also suggested James Dean in a Hitchcock film. Let's see, Chris Farley in Grown Ups, which... Oh no, damn it! We didn't get Chris Farley in Grown Ups. Oh god.
Just on Chris Farley, because I don't know if we're going to have much to say about Chris Farley, but one thing that it feels like the world did miss out on is, you know, that Canadian mayor Rob Ford?
Oh yeah.
Who he actually died as well. But he was like this disgusting, fat, sweaty, like, mayor who was always in trouble, and he looked like Chris Farley, and he was like older. He was probably around about the same age, and he, like, Chris Farley would have come back to Saturday Night Live and played him in every sketch because it would have been like such perfect casting,
like Larry Sanders and Larry
David. Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, like but Rob Ford, if you like have this somewhere in the recesses of your memory, he's the one who was accused of like cheating on his wife, and when asked about it, he was like, "Oh, the accusations say that I ate her pussy, but why would I do that when I've got plenty to eat at home?" And it's like, this isn't Meryl.
This is a nightmare.
Oh, well, Craig also,
yes, please.
While we're on SNL alumni who have died, Craig also suggested that John Belushi should have played Adam Sandler's character in Funny People. So that's a cool idea. He also suggested Marilyn Monroe as a reoccurring cameo in The Golden Girls, or the mother of Samantha from Sex and the City.
Nice. Yeah, Marilyn Monroe's an interesting one, that if she was still alive, she'd be fucking old, but she'd be like the kind of roles she could have done later on in life had she lived.
Lastly, Craig also suggested, what if Buddy reprised his role for Earbud Golden Receiver? a grim suggestion, because if you've listened to our Earbud episode, you will know that they had to replace the dog for the sequel. All right. What's next?
On the Chris Farley thing, and just a general comment about comedians who died early. I did a lot of trawling around to try and figure out, you know, like Jim Belushi, and is it Jim? No, they both died.
No, Jim Belushi's still alive.
No,
is he?
According to Jim, mate.
No, yeah, different sitcom dad who died. Sorry,
John Ritter.
Yeah. But a lot of those comedians who died in sort of the early 90s, I looked through the next few years of comedy movies to see what they could have done. And the issue is that all those comedy movies are so based around the main comedian that was the star. And so you can't really swap them out, because the kinds of movies that were made were just so dependent on, like, Adam Sandler, how old he was, and like the kinds of characters that he wanted to do. And so the main problem is that we missed out on, like, the unique comedy characters that those people would have actually come up with out of their own practice.
That's true. That is true, and maybe a different podcast. This could be a good transition, Jeremy, if you did actually come up with ideas for this person who you said you were going to do. Mike suggests Michael Clark Duncan in a Fast and Furious film.
Nice.
Transition to Michael Clark Duncan, Jeremy.
Yeah, I mean, I said I'd do Michael Clark Duncan, and then I realized he was 54 when he died, and I was just like, oh, yeah, okay. It's quite a difficult age for him to, like, you know, the sort of late 50s, early 60s is a difficult time for an actor that's mainly known for his physicality. So
I guess Fast and Furious is a good suggestion for them, because he could easily be the man at the desk type villain,
who's only 3 years older than Vin Diesel.
Yeah.
He plays if John Cena's playing Vin Diesel's brother in Fast 9, Michael Clark Duncan plays his other brother in Fast
His
10.
dad.
Yeah, yeah, it's their dad.
And they just have a gravel off, like they just talk and they have a gravel voice off, like
Nice. So that's your that's the
Yeah.
Michael Clark Duncan.
I mean, I
segment?
said I was going to do it, and then I like looked at all the movies that came out after he died, and I was like,
Well, he was such a character actor that it's hard to.
well, the only
Well,
thing
like
that
a
I actually came up
background
with
actor.
was actually casting him as Nick Fury instead of Samuel L. Jackson.
Nice.
But I thought maybe a Nick Fury that was like that massive, like with such huge shoulders and stuff, it would look a bit weird to have a Nick Fury who kind of looked like one of the superheroes.
Yeah.
Also, technically breaking the rule because
Yes, yeah.
Nick Fury was first given to the world Samuel L. Jackson's performance as him in Iron Man in 2007.
Imagine a
2008,
recast in the
2000.
middle
2008.
of the Marvel Universe, a recast of Nick Fury.
Nice. Okay. I thought I did a bit of workshopping on Heath Ledger.
Yep.
Probably one of the strangest cases of a celebrity death. And I'll get to that in a minute. But this isn't my idea because it actually just straight up nearly happened. And we talked about it on our Mad Max film franchise, Four Nights. But he was attached to Mad Max Fury Road for years because if you don't know, Mad Max Fury Road was in development for goddamn 2 decades or so before it finally got made. And is definitively the best film of the 2010s. So
Yeah, it's definitely in the top couple.
I put to you guys, no one's knocking on Tom Hardy. You know, no one's saying he was bad as Mad Max.
I'll
And
say
I'm
it.
not necessarily saying
He was bad.
Heath Ledger would be better. But
Are you saying that he should have
one-
been Furiosa?
No, I'm saying one is Mad Max, Max Rotakowski. Is he a particularly Rockatansky? Is he a particularly challenging role? Do you guys think?
No. But you should give it to an Aussie.
Bloody Struth.
Right? I think that's what it offers to the role because Tom Hardy doesn't really do an Australian accent, and he barely talks, so you don't know what accent he's doing. But also, I would have loved to have seen Heath Ledger as Mad Max, but also because it just seems like the kind of role that Heath Ledger would get post The Dark Knight, right?
Yeah, totally.
Because what I said before about him being kind of an interesting case of early celebrity death is it feels like Heath Ledger died just as he got his big break. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I know he'd done Brokeback Mountain, which is as maybe as incredible of a performance as the Joker in The Dark Knight. But that was still, I feel like, I don't know, it feels still kind of underground.
Well, the thing is that with true A-list celebrities who fully cross over, they need their kind of like Oscar. It's like Julia Roberts, right? Like, I mean, Julia Roberts is not a great idea, but a great example. But like, the idea is that you have the small indie darling film that you do that's kind of a challenging, controversial role choice that you win the Oscar for or you get nominated for, and then you also prove your blockbuster credentials by, really doing something that is full market, like your $1 billion movie kind of thing, and then you are fully A-list celebrity.
Yeah.
And that's what he'd done with Joker, which was revolutionary. And part of the reasons Joker's so scary is because it's probably one of the best examples of the cliche of an actor disappearing into a role that I can think of. Like, Heath Ledger is unrecognizable in that film.
Yeah.
And
you can still see online all the comments from when he was first cast as like, oh, he's probably going to try and have sex with Batman because he's a gay cowboy. And that's all that was known of Heath Ledger. But it was after he passed away and it was after his performance.
I mean, I'm not here for this level of Knight's Tale erasure, guys. A Knight's Tale, come on.
But like after that, he was retroactively considered an incredible actor, it seems, like almost overnight. Like
That's exactly my point. Thank you, Richard. Yeah, like Knight's Tale is fine. It's kind of a role anyone could play, right? Tom Hardy could have done it, for example.
J.K.
But
Simmons could have done it.
Martin Lawrence could have done it.
I guess I'm saying, like, it's hard to cast Heath Ledger in roles that he never got, because it almost feels like films would be written for him. Because while, like, what kind of actor is Heath Ledger? We got 2 Oscar-worthy performances out of him before he passed away. But what else, was he a chameleon? Was he a villain? What is Heath Ledger? What is Heath Ledger?
Here's what I think, because one thing that's interesting in looking at these and like the alternate reality kind of way of looking at them is there's a lot of times where it seems like an actor like stole someone's career almost. And one example that I thought of as for Heath Ledger specifically is that almost any role that went to Michael Fassbender post 2008 could have gone to Heath Ledger.
Wow. Okay.
Like, imagine Heath Ledger in Inglourious Bastards, Heath Ledger as Magneto,
Heath Ledger in Shame. Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
Heath Ledger in like in that small role in 12 Years a Slave, and also like.
Although, how big is Heath Ledger's dick? I mean, we need to know for Shame. That's important.
And there's also a handful of Jake Gyllenhaal roles that I'm sure could have gone to Heath Ledger. Jake Gyllenhaal, obviously that they kind of like met in the middle at Brokeback Mountain and then could have essentially had the same career following that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because when you were saying actor who stole career, I thought you were going to say Jake Gyllenhaal because I was thinking about Jake Gyllenhaal's role in Prisoners as well.
Yeah.
He stole his career by like kissing him. He like sucked his career out of him. Sorry, is that a gay joke? I'm sorry.
But can I tell you the one I thought of for Heath Ledger that I was like super proud of? This one that again, it's like it's a role played very well, but I could see the 10 years following his death, his career leading to this point where he would direct and star in a remake of A Star Is Born.
Yeah, man. Totally.
Because 10 Things I Hate About You showed us that he could sing.
Exactly. And so it's like, but like that sort of gritty, dark, and also like he seems like 100% seems like the kind of actor who would have started directing at some point, and his first foray into it would have been incredible. And so I think that, A Star Is Born, about the right age, like everything, it would have been. Yeah, would have worked out.
On a similar train of thought, Richard, Heath Ledger is now, because of his death, a weird anomaly in Christopher Nolan's filmography, where he's one of the few actors who he hasn't worked with multiple times. And so I was like, what other Nolan movie would Heath Ledger be in? And other than like him just reprising his role as the Joker in The Dark Knight Rises, which I feel like definitely would have happened, right? Like it's almost like the main problem with The Dark Knight Rises is that there's this big hole in it where the Joker and Heath Ledger feel like they should be, even if it's just a cameo. But I could see him being Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character in Inception.
Interesting.
And mainly because to me, they look identical. Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Heath Ledger, they look so similar. And when Joseph Gordon-Levitt was cast in The Dark Knight Rises, there was legitimate discussion that he was replacing Heath Ledger even just to be, as the Joker, even just for like a non-talking, non-speaking cameo.
Yeah.
I also think that he would have maybe usurped Matthew McConaughey for the lead in Interstellar.
Yeah.
I could see that being a Heath Ledger role.
Fuck it. He would have usurped Matthew McConaughey for Dallas Buyers Club and True Detective.
Do we think that the reconnaissance would not have happened if Heath Ledger was around?
What a butterfly effectian conversation this is. Maybe, right? I mean, do they occupy the same space necessarily? Not really, but...
Well, I actually think they have the same sort of, like, rangy, good-looking appeal. Like, not classically movie good-looking. Like Jake Gyllenhaal is that classic movie, like, Hollywood leading man look. Whereas I think that, like, McConaughey and... They're like the ruffian. They're like the sort of the cheeky ruffian kind of
the one that your mum
smile.
doesn't want you to bring home.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I actually think that Matthew McConaughey is a good, a good analog for. Is it analog? Anyway,
yeah, sure.
Yeah, a good other option for Heath Ledger. Except Heath Ledger's much better.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, I do. Although also, Lars and the Real Girl.
Is that a Heath Ledger role?
Yeah,
When did that come out though?
You're that might have been 2006. You're right, actually.
Dumbass.
Breaks the rules.
Yeah, it's 2007.
Yeah. Cool. Well, here's some more suggestions from our listeners, our wonderful listeners. Christopher Garrett Brown on Instagram said Brandon Lee in any ensemble action film, Armageddon, Con Air, The Rock, etc. Yep, I could definitely see that. Here is a couple of examples that these are like this is submitted from a listener, and the most the coolest idea, I think, is from Ed Amon, who suggested young James Stewart as the Santa Claus. Of course, that would be incredible. Like some time travel needs to take place, right?
Oh, yeah.
But that's allowed in these rules, I guess. It feels like if Jimmy Stewart had played Scott Calvin.
No, I gotta get married.
I was waiting for that line. I was so excited to hear you deliver that line. I feel like Jimmy Stewart's Scott Fat Calvin would have elevated that movie above an already pretty, respected pillar in Christmas movie canon.
An already pretty respected actor in Tim Allen.
Well, and we potentially wouldn't have that problem of Tim Allen being this awkward thing you have to sit through watching the Santa Claus or other great films that happen to star Tim Allen, such as Big Trouble. Maybe Jimmy Stewart could have played the main character in Big Trouble.
Well, what's Big Trouble like? I haven't heard about it.
Oh, it's so good, dude. It's great. It's like
It
Arrested
stars
Development.
Tim Allen. It's a movie version of Arrested Development. It's got Stanley Tucci in it.
Gab, what's her name? The lady
Sophia
from
Vergara.
Modern Family? Sophia Vergara? Yep, she's in it.
This happens every time that you say it's got that woman, and you say a name that starts with a G, and then you say the woman from Modern Family.
Edamon also suggested James Dean would make a fantastic contemporary Joker. Case in point, Rebel Without a Cause. And he also suggested Katharine Hepburn as the bride in Kill Bill. These are great examples because they're kind of a different version of this concept where it's like what
casting
time travel is
movies in a
possible.
different time period. One it's like the actor isn't dead, but they've aged out of the role potentially, is the fact that Willem Dafoe never got a chance to play the Joker.
Right, yeah. But I mean, he could still be the Joker probably, to be honest.
I mean, they're probably going to make 3 new Joker movies next year, so, maybe. Old Joker.
One suggestion that I loved, even though I don't fully understand it, but it was a great use of an actor I hadn't thought of. Sam Stanley suggested Anton Yelchin as Paul Atreides in the upcoming Dune film.
Oh, yeah.
Timothy Chalamet.
Definitely.
Yeah. What a great application of Anton Yelchin.
Anton Yelchin was one that I thought of. Anton Yelchin's great, and he's another one that I was trying to think. It almost feels like there's careers that got stolen from him. What I thought of the Marvel thing. He could have played Reed Richards,
right? Yep.
But yeah, there was one that came up earlier on while we were talking, and I was like, I'll make a note of that, and I forgot to. But Anton Yelchin, gone too soon. R.I.P.
He also suggests Adam West to play Bruce Wayne in a Batman Beyond movie, which I feel like Michael Keaton's the person you get for a Batman Beyond movie.
Yeah.
But to each their own. What else has he suggested? He suggested a whole bunch. James Horner reprising for Avatar, or even do the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. I'd like to imagine child actors who died young and what they would have been like in movies as adults, like Judith Barcy, River Phoenix, Heather O'Rourke, and The Sort. And lastly, he also suggests Robin Williams in a DCEU movie.
Nice. I do think that if River Phoenix was still alive, we wouldn't have Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
Oh, Joaquin, actually. I think we wouldn't have Joaquin instead of River.
Because he would have just overshadowed him.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he just would never have gotten as famous.
Yeah, or like Johnny Depp as well is another one that's like...
Yes, sorry. That was actually an idea I had when you first talked about this. My idea was essentially River Phoenix for Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, River Phoenix as Johnny Depp.
Yeah, pretty much. And then we wouldn't have like this sort of like, is he, isn't he, like awkwardness around this whole career right now in the last 3 years.
Oh, you don't know. River Phoenix might not have been squeaky clean either.
Yeah.
I do not know nearly enough about River Phoenix to comfortably say, yes, he should have played Jack Sparrow.
Well, it's just that everyone everyone at the time was talking about him, and like, you know, the fact that all the directors were sort of lining up to work with him. You know, Steven Spielberg casting him as the young Indiana. You know, just he was the new exciting, and I actually think you're right with Leonardo DiCaprio. That's I mean, I can see a past, where River played Jack Dawson in Titanic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, let's look at some more comments. Jamie Larson says Oliver Reed as Thomas Wake in The Lighthouse. I looked up Oliver Reed, and unless I'm not getting something, I don't get it. I don't know who Oliver Reed is. Do you guys know who Oliver Reed is?
Yeah, Oliver Reed was he was, you know, the fat guy from Jurassic Park?
Yeah, Newman.
He was the more respectable version of that guy. So he often played like someone who worked from the government in like 90s kind of procedural thriller movies. He was like the sort of good FBI guy. He was not super fat, but always kind of chubby. And he was he was a really good screen presence, but he wasn't a leading man. He was a sort of a character actor.
Oh, nice. Sweet.
And Julian Jocelyn said he would love to see a Doctor Who movie with all the doctors getting equal roles. And he also said he would have loved to have seen David Bowie and Alan Rickman as James Bond villains.
Nice.
So is this a transition into one of those actors that we can talk about?
Yeah, well, because I've actually got a couple that you know, they were actually looked at these roles and then they died. So David Bowie had a couple. He was looked at for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. It's unclear what role, not necessarily Kurt Russell's role, but I think he could have been, you know, you could replace Sylvester Stallone in that movie with David Bowie.
I highly doubt that Kurt Russell seems like he looks like Chris Pratt way more than David Bowie does.
Yeah.
And he's playing his dad.
Yeah, exactly. So James Gunn had apparently met with or talked to David Bowie about appearing in Guardians of the Galaxy, but they just couldn't work it out before he died. So I think, Kurt Russell probably stay as Ego, but David Bowie, like he is a fucking spaceman, you know? Yeah. Like you can throw him in Sylvester Stallone's role, for example, and it's believable that he was one of Yondu's old, like, you know. And then the other one that David Bowie was looked at for was Nyanda Wallace, Jared Leto's character in Blade Runner 2049. And even though Jared Leto's like pretty decent in that movie, but it is like you don't want to inflate his ego by having him play the godlike character in this thing. But like having David Bowie play that, I think, again, it's like, he is a freaky spaceman who would have invented the replicants and and you know, being a little bit older, and I think that would really work.
I hate Jared Leto.
But also, yes, this is well canvassed. But the other thing with David Bowie in that role is that you see Jared Leto in Blade Runner 2049, and you just go like, ooh, yuck, icky, evil guy from the very, very beginning. Whereas I feel like David Bowie would have taken that character in such a more interesting direction, where he could be kind of, at the beginning, you're like, I mean, he seems incredible and like this like very impressive, amazing person, and then as the movie goes on, he becomes more and more evil. And I think that they're discovering evil is always creepier and more horrible than like just going like someone just going, "Hey, I'm evil," like dude. Right from the beginning.
That's a great way to put it.
I think that as well, that like you. The impression that the world of Blade Runner 2049 has of Nyanda Wallace is like it's how Jared Leto sees himself, but it's how the world saw David Bowie.
Amen,
and
brother.
So I think, like, like, you know, you have Jared Leto walk in and you go, shit, this character's a big deal because he's acting like he is one. But you go, shit, this character's a big deal because it's fucking David Bowie, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's like Bowie playing Tesla, you know, like you just go, wow, this guy really did, like, he was maybe dealing in magic.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, nice.
Did you have any for Alan Rickman, Jeremy?
Yeah, I thought of Alan Rickman, I just wanted him to play a Bond villain, and I thought about him playing Christoph Waltz's character in Spectre, and thinking that it would actually, I don't know, I think it would add a bit more. It's weird to say that more gravitas than Christoph Waltz, because I think that Christoph Waltz is an amazing actor. But I just think that Alan Rickman would have been someone, and obviously he would have been older, and so the whole storyline.
So they couldn't have been brothers.
Yeah, I know, and it was just I was just about to say maybe that would have fixed one of the biggest issues.
Yeah.
But I just think that Alan Rickman has just such, especially as he got older, he had this whole like side to his career, I think, of playing kind of like just cool older roles. The other thing that I really wanted him to be able to do later on in like maybe even like 20 years time, 15, 20 years time, was to play Gandalf in like some form of Lord of the Rings-ish kind of remake, whether it's the Amazon series or something else.
Nice.
I do have to quickly just say though, Jeremy, Spectre does break the rule because Spectre, a 2015 movie, and Alan Rickman, one of the first big deaths of what would be the running joke of 2016. So yeah,
how many more people can die in 2016?
Well, but I don't. Sorry, joke was maybe the wrong term to use. But do you remember when? Like, I remember waking up to finding out Alan Rickman died and being like, "Oh no!" And then 2 days later, David Bowie dying and being like, "Oh man, it can't get any worse." And then it got progressively more worse. As it went on.
David Bowie died 4 days before Alan Rickman.
I apologize. There you go.
But yeah, and then it was like, oh no, fucking George Michael died. And then like a day later, Carrie Fisher died. And then like a day later, Carrie Fisher's mum died.
Yeah. Oh shit, that was sad.
And worst of all,
sad.
On November the 4th, 2016, democracy died in America.
Okay, another one. There's a couple more that were like looked at before they died. One was Burt Reynolds was supposed to play Bruce Dern's character in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, of the Spawn Ranch, the guy that owns that.
Yeah, I wonder if that would have made more sense, because that scene in the movie now feels so out of place, whereas Burt Reynolds, it might have been because it's Burt Reynolds, that's why it's a significant scene. But also, I'm going to say it, I reckon I just don't get Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think that's it. I just don't get it.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't get what that movie's about.
Me neither.
So another one that like I think that they met with, and I think he actually, to be fair, turned down the role before he died. But Gene Wilder as James Halliday in Ready Player One.
Who plays him in the actual movie?
Mark Rylance. And it's like
Mark Rylance is pretty fucking good in that movie. He was,
but it's like this character is Willy Wonka of the 21st century. It's a man who's leaving his legacy behind on his deathbed, and yeah, like if there had been Gene Wilder, like Mark Rylance was able to play him throughout his life, and so I think they probably did the right choice by picking a younger actor who you can then age up to the end of his life, rather than picking one who died before the movie came out, and trying to de-age him. But yeah, I think just the meta narrative of like Willy Wonka coming out of retirement as well to play this character one final time in a Steven Spielberg movie would have been amazing.
Who was Simon Pegg's character?
Ogden Morrow.
That should have been Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Oh, dude. It should have been Nick Frost,
although
to be honest.
I feel like it has less. Philip Seymour Hoffman does have less nerd clout than Simon Pegg, though.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, so if you guys don't have any more, I've just got a couple more. So one, okay, and this one, again, I was quite proud of thinking of.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you very much. So Kingsman, the villain, played by Samuel L. Jackson, who's doing like a weird comedic role, and it's like he's not really into it, or he's too into it, or he's not into it enough. But imagine that role being played by Bernie Mac.
Yeah, nice. That is a good idea. Yeah.
Like not necessarily with the lisp and everything like that, but just like Bernie Mac as the villain in Kingsman. That excited me. And then my last one is another case of like a career being stolen. So roles like Bane and like the Tom Hardy 2010s roles, you got Bane, like Dunkirk, Mad Max. I think like all of those could have been played by Earl Hindman.
Who is that?
Who played Wilson on Home Improvement. So,
What are you talking about?
because,
Gosh.
like, Earl Hindman's thing was having half his face covered. And then Tom
Oh my
Hardy
God.
just stole that from him and took all these roles that Earl Hindman could have played.
What a note. What a note to end on, Richard. I love it. I love it. That is...
Sorry, can we not end it just for a second, because I've just had a late breaking because this is the Philip Seymour Hoffman Lovin' podcast. I have thought of one final role that I think could be beloved or totally rejected by AJ, and I'm really interested to see. I would like to have seen Philip Seymour Hoffman replace Daniel Craig in Knives Out.
You know what? I'm not against it. I'm fascinated by it.
I think he could have been a far more, a less shticky and more
Sticky.
I think that Philip Seymour Hoffman would not have taken me out of the movie in the ways that Daniel Craig took me out of the movie. I still loved the movie, loved the whole experience, but I actually think that I would have enjoyed Philip Seymour Hoffman, and it felt like it was a natural role more than I felt like Daniel Craig was chewing the scenery in every scene.
Well, I rebuke that. I reject the idea that Daniel Craig takes you out of the movie. But if you were to ask me in a vacuum, is Philip Seymour Hoffman a better actor than Daniel Craig? Absolutely.
Oh, no. It's more
Daniel Craig would say absolutely.
Is he a better Benoit Blanc? That's the biggest question.
I don't know, because it almost feels, Jeremy, like Benoit Blanc is actually quite an important healing moment for Daniel Craig after being sick of playing James Bond when he clearly doesn't want to anymore. And I would almost be worried for Daniel Craig's mental health if he wasn't able to play Benoit Blanc.
He'll still have Logan Lucky, though.
Yeah. Well... Yeah, no, I get it, man. I get it. Welcome to the Philip Seymour Hoffman Memorial Podcast.
I also
truly,
think that, another actor who's not dead, their career just never really took off in the way that it would need to. But I think that if they were in real good shape and a famous actor, that AJ could have played Wolverine.
I'm not dead.
Yeah, I know. That's what I said.
What?
So you're not dead. Your career just hasn't taken off quite in the way that it would need to.
That's very. I'm very touched, Richard, that you would say I could play Wolverine.
I would love to see AJ as Wolverine.
I feel like you're understating the not in shape part, because I think if there's a spectrum, I'm on the other end of it to Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. But thank you so much. Why is it? Because he's short in the comics.
Oh yeah.
Is
He's
that
short
what it's
and he's
based off?
has the
He's
weight
hairy.
of the world on his shoulders.
What's a famous Wolverine line that I can do in a...
Sorry, bub.
Okay, so this is actually a peek into the alternate universe where AJ did play Wolverine. Here it is. You know, we don't get this for any of the other actors we've talked about. Here it is. You ready? Sorry, bub.
Beautiful.
This is a pretty good David Hayter impression. I don't know if it's... Does he ever say that in the... Does Hugh Jackman ever say sorry,
He
bub?
says bub, a couple of times.
Okay. The main imagine me and Logan playing like 26-year-old AJ playing like this old haggard Logan.
That would make
like,
the relationship to the little girl so much creepier for some reason.
Oh, what the hell? Don't drop that. Oh my god.
Once again, a podcast with the three of us ends with bullying AJ.
Next fortnight's podcast is going to be roles we could have played if we were more famous.
and in shape.
But more famous, better looking, and talented.
Yeah. All right.
I feel like Heath Ledger
Okay,
stole
everybody.
my career.
I feel like we need to bring this back to
Chalamet stole
Philip
my
Seymour
career.
Hoffman, guys. I just have one more Philip Seymour Hoffman suggestion. I want to make Cats 2019 even more ridiculous and replace James Corden with Philip Seymour Hoffman as Bustopher Jones.
That's beautiful. That would have been a
That's the
good
best
movie.
idea.
Yeah, that's all that movie needed.
Oh man, he would not have done it, would he?
Well, I mean,
There's no.
Judi Dench did it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Actually.
Ian McKellen did it.
Jesus. All right. Well, hey, let's put a pin in this because I think even though as we come to the end, all our best ideas seem to be spilling out now. But thank you very much for listening, everybody. And if you enjoyed this, please like Cult Popture on Facebook and subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on iTunes and wherever you get your podcasts. We're also on Instagram, Twitter. These are all the ways you can reach us. And when we do these topics, which we sort of source some ideas from the fans from, you can be a part of that too. And please join our Discord as well. Jeremy, Richard, it's been a wonderful evening.
It always is. It's just lovely, guys.
It's always a
love you
beautiful
lots.
evening, even when I don't talk to you guys.
Especially.
And stay tuned for our post-credit sequence after the music that you two can't hear, but I can because it plays on a constant loop in my head once that music finishes. But yeah, thank you. Let us know if you have any more ideas for who Philip Seymour Hoffman should have played. What's the most ridiculous example I can think to just end on a bang? Philip Seymour Hoffman should have played...
As Will Smith's character in Spies in Disguise.
There it is. That's not a bad idea. All right. Welcome everybody to the post-credit scenes. Richard, what did you think?
Thanks for sticking around. I know that was a tough one to get through.
Yeah, there you go. There it is. All right. What this is at the end of each episode, we take a question or a topic or whatever that's been submitted to us from one of our patrons over at patreon.com/cultpopture. If you donate more than $5, you also get to suggest your own post-credit sequence, which is what this is. And Richard, today's post-credit sequence comes to us from Kate Pickworth, who's been on the show before. She says, guys, I finally thought of something. Genuinely, it has taken me this long. Laughing, crying emoji. What do you think is the best example of an instant classic movie? What does it really take to get that label? And what do you think is a great example of a movie that only became a classic over time? Why does a movie fail to get the status straight away but slowly can gain it? Thanks, love your work.
Love you too, Kate. Okay, so for this, there's obviously plenty of examples of instant classics. Things like Back to the Future, Ghostbusters, a lot of those took the world by storm when they came out. In terms of recent examples, I'd say Mad Max Fury Road is unequivocally became as soon as it came out, it's this is going in the history books kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas, for movies that became a classic over time, there's a lot of, the term cult classic is thrown around, and that's kind of what it's really describing. Movies that weren't huge upon release and found a second life later on. Shawshank Redemption is kind of the classic example of this, that it actually didn't do very well at the box office in 1994, but it was, word of mouth and VHS sales. But, it all comes down to, it's economics. It's marketing budgets and box office and everything like that. I remember I saw Walk Hard in the cinema, and I thought it was one of the greatest movies I'd ever seen. Yeah. And then no one else fucking saw it, and then now everyone's talking about it because Bohemian Rhapsody obviously brought it back up. But yeah, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of examples of movies like that became a classic over time. Blade Runner, 2001. There's probably more examples of this than there are of instant classics. Yeah,
that's true. Sleeper hit is another term used for it. Why? So that's why a movie would fail to get that status straight away, is because its marketing budget maybe isn't good enough, or it's things.
You just have to believe that if your movie is good enough, it will eventually find its audience.
Yeah, that's all. And look, if you just make good content, people will see it. That's all you need to do. That's all you need to do.
I've been doing for 4 fucking years, mate.
Is make good content. That's all you have to do. Nothing else factors in. It's just that.